Well, it was coming in that game, that equaliser from Brighton, and it was a fair result in the end. Brighton could possibly even have taken all three.
Yeah, I don't think you could deny Brighton their point, Kelly, last night. I was there at the bridge, and they for the first 20 minutes, they were a little afraid. They were sat there and were a little tentative, bit timid. But ironically, once Chelsea scored and you then thought they were going to go and control the game, it was actually Brighton that picked it up. And that's I would use that word to describe Chelsea's lack last night. They never controlled that game. They were 1-0 up, but the game was always in the balance, and Brighton were committing people into the box. Second half, real committed effort from them. And I think they deserve what they got in the end. They've
gone off the boil a bit. You've seen a lot of them.
Yeah.
What do you think? Look, injuries are a part of that, and another one last night, it looks like, to Reece James. But well, what do you put it down to?
I think it's difficult to put it down to any one issue. I would say that I do think, and I've really admired Thomas Tuchel since he's been at the club, I think he has to adopt a different stance and an attitude to the one that he's got at the moment. I feel the world's against us, everything's going against us, and you can't be like that as the Chelsea boss. He's got to have a bit more than that. And I think he needs to set a bit more of a tone. That it's tough for us, it's hard, but we can get through it. We'll come through. I trust the boys. I know at the moment the message that's going out, I think, is a bit on the back foot to me.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. It's such a defeatist tone coming out of his mouth for a Chelsea manager. If you're Roman Abramovich, you're looking at him thinking, well, you've thrown the towel in already. He's saying this morning, it'd be laughable to think that we can challenge to win the Premier League.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't win the Premier League and you don't win the Champions League, like you're champions,
you're struggling.
You've not got a job.
No.
Simple as that. You're Chelsea manager. That's what happens. That's the nature of the beast of managing Chelsea. You don't win, and we know he's a good coach. He's done a brilliant job. Don't get me wrong. But roll yourself. You send in a message when you talk as a manager. You're sending a message out to your dressing room, to the owners, to the fans. Players are listening to that. I mean, unless you're telling them something different in the background. I don't like the tone of it. I think it's very poor.
It's interesting because you'll be on the receiving end of a lot of those messages that are coming out from Thomas Tuchel, and there has been, look, lots of managers have talked about the fixture congestion, which it always exists, but exists this year in the middle of a pandemic in which players are missing through COVID restrictions, and there have been players talking about player welfare. Is the tone that's coming out from Tuchel particularly negative or defeatist, do you think?
I think it is quite defeatist, actually. I totally agree with the guys. What's quite interesting is, listen, for us as newspapermen, when there is a press conference, you're looking for what the standout line is going to be. What's everyone going to be talking about tomorrow? And from last night, the Tuchel was as angry as I've ever seen him. You know, last season, everything was going well for him, so he had that genial smile. He was very low maintenance. But these are the times you find out most about elite managers in the Premier League, when things are going badly. And yesterday he looked seriously rattled, and he has done over a number of weeks, actually, since just before the Everton game, when he was actually saying, no, we're fine, we'll carry on, we've had a few COVID cases, but we will play, we will follow the rules. And as he's lost points, his demeanour has changed. And suddenly it's the world's against us. And the problem he has is, rightly or wrongly, people will have zero sympathy for him because he has an outstanding squad. He's got a fantastic academy. He has players that he can call on. James came off yesterday. Chilwell already out. Alonso, experienced international who's won titles with that club, comes into play. Chalobah, who did well during the start of the season, comes in when Christensen comes off. He has the players. So, as you were saying, there won't be that much room for manoeuvre for him. And I think that going into this period, he simply has to find a way and strike a more positive tone. Otherwise, you guys have been players, so you can tell me better than me, but it transmits itself to the dressing room, and suddenly the players have got a different laying into that negative prophecy, if you like, rather than actually defying the odds.
I think there's that line, Darren, where you're to distinguish between being honest as a coach, and I like his honesty, and I like the way that he speaks and the way that he presents himself in that respect. Usually, he gives an honest version, honest account, doesn't dress anything up, but I do think he's sort of walking down the wrong path at the moment. Look, our league is a tough one. This time of the year, it was like it for Tim and I. and it will always be the same. It's grueling, it's physically demanding, it's mentally tough. And you're right, Kelly, I sympathise in amongst this current climate where we're working under and the conditions and how difficult it is to manage people. That's his skill. That's what he's got the gig for, because he's clearly a good coach and he's clearly managed some of the most highest of profile players anywhere in the world. Now pick this lot up. Pick this lot up. I see Klopp doing that. I think Jurgen's brilliant at that. He has a moan, he'll have a whinge, but he picks them up. And I'm not quite seeing that with Tuchel in this period.
No, you say that about picking the team up, but we didn't see that in the performance of Liverpool against Leicester, and that's a big part of why City now have that big advantage at the top of the table going into the new year.
I think it's really difficult City are out there in front, but you know that the manager, Guardiola, is going to be demanding of them still, because they want to be involved when the cups get dished out. And it won't be long, coming to March, April, May, the sun starts shining. That's when the big games are. And as a footballer, you want to be part of them. So the in-house competition will keep them sharp. With Jurgen, I never say die with Jurgen, because he rolls his sleeves up. Thomas has to show me that. I think this is the first bump in the road we've seen at Chelsea. We have to see how he reacts to it. It's okay winning every week when you've got all the best players. I think, possibly what I think he's done too early. He rotated his players, especially in a listen, everyone will say, well, you've got world-class players, you can rotate. But as a manager, unless you win the games, you're wrong to do that, especially in a pandemic, because he's ended up resting players for certain games, and then when he wants to call upon them, they've got COVID. So I think in this climate, you're probably better off playing your best players available at the time, because you never know what's around the corner from day to day, week to week in this pandemic, because we're going to have to manage it. I'm sick and tired of listening to managers moaning about it.
But it's a new situation that they're having to adapt to. This is not something that any manager will have experienced before. So they're learning on the job here. These kind of squads that are decimated by players who aren't necessarily showing symptoms, but are unable to train, unable to travel, unable to be part of the team setup, all those things. It's brand new for managers. Yeah,
brand new. He's just got whoever learns quick enough, isn't it?
But Dean Smith and Eddie Howe, ask them how they feel. For Tuchel and the guys at the top end, of course, everyone's only interested in their own corner and their own club. But we see it. It's different. I see guys. Can you imagine what it must be like for Norwich at the moment, getting knocked 3s, 4s, and 5s every game?
Well, this is the point.
Or you get it at Newcastle, and there's Sir Maximin and Wilson both go off injured. And
imagine.
This is the point I made last night in the match report. Chelsea were able to bring in a £100 million striker for the last couple of games. He scores against Villa, scored again last night. They're in a good place to be able to score goals. They're able to bring in experienced defenders. They've got midfielders who lots of other clubs would love to take on loan over the next month or so. They have, and then that's even before you get to the academy players who are knocking at the door for a first team place. So it's about having to find a way to win. And, we talk about COVID and the rights and wrongs of playing through this period. But the bottom line, as you were saying, is his own club voted to carry on playing. So they believe it can be done during this period. And if that's the case, then you've got to deliver the results that back up their belief that you can play and win during this little phase.
Do you know, Darren, one thing, Kelly, I know John Terry's just gone back in to the club in working with the academy guys.
Coaching consultancy role at the academy.
Right. Scrap that one just for the time being and get him in that first team pot at the moment.
Yeah.
And get him explaining to one or two of the guys about what it's like at this time at a Chelsea, at a club with an owner like they have. I think he'd be fantastic for Thomas Tuchel. I don't mean to become part of his immediate staff. That's not going to happen, I know. But in terms of actually having John in there and say, and if John had half a chance to get hold of Thomas Tuchel at the moment and say to him, listen, just going to give you my opinion, if you don't mind, if you've got half an hour with a cup of coffee, sit down and tell him what he thinks, because you'd be drawing from someone that's been through it, seen it all and done it.
We can only remember this period being like it is. I mean, it's what we're used to. He's not going to change it. Ralph Rangnick, Thomas Tuchel, not going to come to this country, open their mouth, keep shouting in every press conference, and we're going to say, OK, then let's change it. It won't happen. Pep's already tried till he's blue in the face. And now he's forgot about it now. He just carries on now because he knows it's part of it. When you see Guardiola now, he says it's a Christmas period, it's brilliant, Boxing Day football. You know, he's embracing it.
To be fair, none of the managers complained about Boxing Day or New Year's Day football. It was the fixture in the middle, like playing 26, 28.
28
and they were saying, particularly at the moment, that's the one that's tough.
Yeah, but that should be the teams without the big squads. If anyone's going to complain, it's the ones without the big squads doing that. Now, I think if John Terry does...
Or alternatively, just for balance, the big squads the teams with the big squads would say, we play in more competitions. We've got Europe. We will play longer into the domestic cup competition. So we are playing our players as much as those teams with smaller squads.
Yeah, but they've got the players to be able to do it. That's why they play for them clubs. And it's about rotating at the correct time. And I think it's the wrong time to start rotating. When there's a pandemic, I think get the points on the board, because if you win games, you don't feel tired. You don't start feeling tired mentally as a manager and as a player when you start losing. When you win, you ask the Man City players, you tired? Do you want to rest next week? They say no, none of them. No, the 25-man squad, they all want to play and all waiting an hour and a half before the next fixture. Is the manager going to pick me? Am I the chosen one this week? That is the environment you need to create, not the one where it's doom and gloom and now we can have a moan because the manager's moaning. I never hear the Man City players moaning about fixture pile-up because the manager doesn't at the moment. But you hear, because the leader, or Thomas, or whether it's Jurgen or Ralph Rangnick, then the players all of a sudden are having a little gripe. Don't. You're following the manager. The top man has to lead from the top. Keep your positive environment and try and get as many wins as you possibly can in this really difficult time. We know it's difficult.
On that kind of focus of the players and their attitude going into the games, Manchester City are now 8 points clear of Chelsea. They're 9 points clear of Liverpool, who, yes, have played a game fewer, but they could be 12 points clear of them because they play before Liverpool next play. In this circumstance, when the players are in the middle of the festive period, when they're, like you said, physically exhausted, mentally exhausted going into this, trying to get through it, and they look at what looks like a City team who are barely going to drop points between now and the end of the season, how hard is it then for the players, just purely on that level, to focus and to think, right, we're going to go and grind out the results we need to. We're going to dig in and give a bit more.
Well, that's what they have to do. You know, obviously they want to start the season on a level playing field, thinking, no, we want to win the Premier League. Yes, if Man City going so well to keep stretching the lead, it does hurt. But the last thing you want to do is start being in third and start looking behind, because Tottenham and Arsenal and Man United are coming, you know, and all of a sudden you're risking a Champions League spot. I don't for 1 minute think that these three are not going to be out of the Champions League. I think they will. But you can only win what you can win. I mean, if Man City are away and God, you've got to keep pushing and hope that there's a Devon lock. Hopefully someone falls down and they can just continue to push up points. You never know until it's over. We've seen Man City come back from a deficit before. You know, keep getting their wins, keep getting the confidence. And all of a sudden they start looking over their shoulder. The team was in front. Listen, I don't believe that. I think it's so far ahead now. I really do. I think if they win their next fixture as well, which they probably will, the head-to-heads are going to be crucial because you get an opportunity then. Liverpool play against them and Chelsea. If they take the points, the Liverpool and Chelsea managers will be cheering on each other against Man City. That's where we are at the moment. But come February, when the Champions League starts again, they can start putting their concentration into that. That's the only danger. Whereas Man City are firing on all cylinders in every competition. And
at 1-0 last night, they have a chance, Chelsea. Callum Hudson-Odoi breaks through. They're 2-on-1. They're 2-on-1, which you have to exploit. The best players, 2-on-1 it's like all your Christmases have come early. Or late, should I say. But, you know, you get a situation like that, 1 up, 2-on-1, late in the game, go and kill it. Go and finish the game or put it to bed. They didn't take that chance. Brighton weren't to be denied, as I said earlier, because they kept going and scored a fantastic goal. Danny Welbeck's header was as good as you'll see. But Chelsea did have a chance to put that away and to maybe come away from that last night thinking, we've got that fixture out the way. I've lost Reece James, that's a blow, and I've lost Christensen, that's disappointing. We got the 3 points, we tick the box, we move on. Instead of that, it's a different narrative coming out.
I'm in just... But the one dissenting voice, I still think there's a lot of football to be played. I really do. I think 54 points to be played, as Guardiola was saying. Chelsea play City next month, January, and Liverpool play City in April. by then, as you say, Champions League, Internationals, League Cup, there's so many different competition, FA Cup as well, and you throw in COVID, which is the big unknown. No one knows how that will affect any given team. And suddenly, the picture could change at any time. Obviously, it's dependent on Chelsea finding a way back. Liverpool's is only really a blip. They win this, they're 6 points behind City, and they're not going to give up hope of being able to close that particular gap. So I still think there is scope for it to be competitive, but Liverpool and definitely Chelsea got to get back winning again.
Yeah. And hope that Manchester City drop points, which they do not look like doing at the moment.
I can see you looking at me all like that.
But you're right about the potential for Chelsea and Liverpool. It's just the potential for City to go in the other direction that is the big question in all of that. But as Tim said, what they don't want to do is get themselves in a position where they're looking over their shoulders and Arsenal, Tottenham and Manchester United